And so we made cigarettes more expensive, less people smoked, we had less of a problem. So, it's similar to that. We basically want less of something, we make it more expensive. And so we require fossil fuel companies, coal, oil, natural gas, to pay a fee per the amount of CO2 they're going to emit, and that fee goes back to individuals so that as carbon-rich products become more expensive, we can pay for them, but we have an incentive to choose less carbon-rich.
Right. So when you say we,
Individuals.
You mean the federal government is going to pass a law that requires these corporations to pay these fees?
It's a bill right now.
Right. So that would be done at the national level by Congress.
It would.
And they would be the ones in charge of collecting those fees and making arrangements for them to be distributed.
Yes.
I'm 64 years old. I can remember back when tobacco taxes were low, and they raised them and made promises with the money, what they were doing with the money. They were going to go to places that would help rehabilitate people from smoking and go to using for a lot of things. And a lot of that money, and in fact the vast majority of it, ended up going to places it wasn't promised. And that's one of the problems with this issue is that one of the things that I think we all unfortunately have trust issues with today is in that our federal government will do the things they promise they would do, because that typically isn't the case. And that's one of my problems. Again, I don't have a problem. I wish that we weren't having the problems we have with in many respects. But I wonder, if we can rally people to have this mindset, force Congress to do the right thing, that's one thing. But it's going to have to go an awful long ways from Merriam, Kansas to Washington, D.C.
It's building up ground-up support. And if I could address Councilmember Knapp's issue as well, Yale has done polling studies on this particular issue. They have found that Republicans, 53% support the idea of a carbon fee and dividend, and among young Republicans, the support is at 75%. So, it's not necessarily as polarizing as you think, depending on how it's approached. I share your concerns about where the fee goes. It's absolutely vital. It goes back to each individual.
And the other thing I would, and this is just has to do with capitalism, I guess. Whenever you tell large corporations we're going to put a fee on you, they pass their costs to the people who buy their products. So the money they're going to get back in dividends doesn't really go back to the people. And it goes back to them so that they can pay the higher costs that are passed along by the corporations. So we're talking about many billions and billions of dollars that are changing hands. And again, I go back to this mistrust with what happens with large amounts of money and where it should happen. I think ideologically or idealistically, I think you have a good idea. I just don't know that in a country that has 360 million people, whether they'll be able to do that efficiently. I just don't have a lot of trust in that. I mean, we used to have a good post office. We don't. I mean, pretty much everything the federal government touches, they don't do a very good job with it.
I disagree with Medicare. I think they're doing a great job by Medicare.
Well, I know
love them on Medicare.
I know some people on Medicare that might disagree.
Yeah, I do
I'm not
too.
one of them yet.
Name them.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's one of the problems. Yes.
I totally believe that we have, that we need to do climate warming mitigation. Totally believe that. I've believed it for years. I do not feel like I know enough that I should tell my constituents, oh, and by the way, I'm doing a resolution from all of us that says that the carbon fee dividend thing is the right answer. A lot of times when the young folks have been out striking, what they're saying is, you've got to do something. They're not saying, this is what we think you should do. I totally am willing to say, we've got to do something, but I'm not willing to say, this is it. It's too technical of a resolution coming from me in Merriam. You don't have to answer that. I'm not expecting an answer.
I kind of, in some ways, that's kind of what I was trying to say before. Is I do think that addressing this problem is at some level is a local issue. There are things we can do at a local level to help encourage mitigation strategies. And I do think it's important that we keep the local government from becoming too partisan. What we're talking about with this resolution is a specific policy prescription. There are many other things. 40% of what the second largest contributor to carbon is in fact that we waste 40% of our food. And so we produce a lot more food, which costs a lot in carbon emissions to do. There are small things that we actually as a city can do probably to help lower our carbon footprint. And those are the things that I think we should maybe start with first. And that's why I was talking about some sort of a resolution that really is broader and addresses some of the specific things that are more appropriate at a local level maybe. And if we do that, that might be the starting point to kind of get people on board, as opposed to a specific bill in Congress that might generate these passions.
Since we get to have a second round, I'm going to add on, at the summit 2 weeks ago, they did talk about that there is going to be a metropolitan action plan. Boy, when that gets put together, I think that gives us a much better position to say we support this and we want to go forward, as opposed to accepting your resolution at this point.
But we mentioned that we could, edit it, and it's up to Jennifer to kind of describe that.
Well, I certainly have more I can tell you about it. So I guess I was only asking for another an opportunity to give a longer talk, but that's up to you.
If it's education we need, she's the one to give it.
Yeah, I've gone to so many things over the years. I've heard some of the talk. I just am not sure that's the right thing for our body to embrace at this point. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I was just curious if any other cities in the Johnson County area has entertained this, resolution.
I think you're the first one we've approached.
PD next, Prairie Village.
I'm not necessarily against us setting the way, but sometimes hold back is not a bad option for at least to see what other cities are doing and what problems that they might encounter in developing a resolution. I like looking at other resolutions. I mean, we were on board with the NDO, but it was a matter of a lot of work had been done before we got on board. But so I don't know that now's the time necessarily to jump into that. I do think, as Councilmember Neal indicated, that there are a lot of things we can be doing. I know one of the things we used to support, and we still do, we talked earlier this evening about planting of trees. We used to have a program where we actually reimbursed some of the citizens to plant trees. And I'd like to see programs like that reinstated in the city, where we can assist in reducing some of our carbon footprint by that action itself. So I think there are a lot of things we can do. I'm just not sure we're there yet.
Anybody else over here?
Just along those lines, if I don't want to necessarily just reject the idea of doing anything because it's hard, but I do think there are a number of good ideas where local ordinances and things like that might be adjusted to allow for people who want to plant more trees, specific kinds of vegetation that we might not permit now. I don't know. This is something that could be talked about and looked into in a way that is more locally focused.
Could I say one more thing?
Yes.
It's great to hear that I'm always happy when anyone wants to do anything toward climate change. I'd like to remind you, and this is on the resolution that we wrote up for you, that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has told us that we need to reduce carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere by 50% by the year 2030. I have little kids. That's why I'm here. If you have kids or grandchildren, or if you even like a kid, we need to be thinking about aggressive measures. It's not something that we can just keep considering or gradually moving toward. I understand your roles, and I think you're all doing a very good job in them. But this is why I'm advocating for this and working from the ground up. So thank you.